Team Visma's victorious doubles at the opening weekend, the surprising performance of some much improved teams, and seeing our good friend Chris Froome returning to the continent where he caught Bill Hazier are the three great standout classic moments for cycling in February. Froome has started his season provoking grief and laughter at the same time every time he gets on a racing bike. But to find out what he intends to do, we have to travel back in time, specifically to July 2023. When Froome uploaded a video to YouTube crying about not going to the Tour de France after a season in which he got, wait for it, 8 UCI points. He was the cyclist who got the least points from an Israel team in which there are some real unknowns to the general public, riders such as Taj Jones, Jens Reinders or Marco Frigo. And this despite being by far the one who earned more money than anyone else, with an absolutely embarrassing salary of more than €5.5 million per year. For the winner of 7 Grand Tours, including one after testing positive for salbutamol, there was a flood of cheap excuses to continue mugging the team that had taken him in, after already giving terrible signs of performances to come in his final year with Ineos. Perhaps his Bill Hazier had returned in full competition, or he had a pain in his back and he couldn't mix tramadol with his usual medications. Or time trial bikes are a danger to cyclists. Or then those cycling fans who criticise him. They shouldn't give an opinion because we cause him sudden sadness. Yes, we do. And then the final and most comical of all was that he realised that the saddle of his bike was 3 centimetres wrongly placed, and evidently that had prevented him from pedalling properly. Now that's an excuse as cheap as can be, for anyone who's ever ridden a bike knows very, very quickly when something's uncomfortable, let alone a professional rider. Even Chicken Rasmussen himself scoffed at this excuse by claiming that even if he rode his 2015 motorised Pinarello, he wouldn't finish in the top 20 at the Tour of Rwanda. Now I know that many of you will say in the comments, Froome has had a crash. It shattered his femur in 2019 and he hasn't been the same since. Yeah, and Greg LeMond was shot with buckshot and still won 2 more Tour de France. And even Egan Bernal is back to being halfway competitive in small-town races after almost losing his life. What's more, the one who's fed up, really fed up with all these excuses, is the Jewish team's tycoon and patron, Canadian-Israeli billionaire philanthropist Sylvan Adams. This handsome tanned Madurito has put the Olympic medalist in his place on several occasions by stressing that if he does not perform, it's not because of his 2019 femur injury, but because his overall level is absolutely pitiful. He insisted that Froome was not worth his salary, and that he was not being compensated for what he was paying him, and that even as an advertisement for his nation and team he was no longer useful, since he had signed Froome as a possible candidate to win the Tour de France, and he's ended up being swindled, losing more than €15 million in 3 years. Sylvan Adams is evidently fed up with the excuses of the man who'd won nothing in cycling until Bill Hazier was detected, and even in November 2023 claimed the following: does anyone believe that a rider who has won 7 Grand Tours now says that the position of his saddle is out by several centimetres? Is this credible for a rider who falls off on the first climb of the day? Harsh words from a man who's been conned. Harsh words from a man who's given him the best equipment and even made those marginal gains, something Derek G knows all too well. Marginal gains for Froome to perform. But it wasn't enough for the White Kenyan. However, he has to stick it out because, even though Froome is no longer amongst the highest paid cyclists of the year, he continues to be paid that handsome salary until the naturalised Brit wants to retire, which, according to Chris himself, will be in 2026. So what can Adams do with Froome until then? Well, the answer is easy. Use him as a mascot. Sylvan Adams is not an imbecile. He has even won more races this year than Froome, winning the World Championship in the Masters 65-69 age group. That's why he knows that Froome's poor level on the bike is not enough to take him halfway around the world to promote the brand. His country is at war. Don't worry. Froome will appear in a commercial video to tell you to visit Jerusalem. That he has to show how he helps poor African children with the millions of dollars left over, well, there goes Froome. He's Kenyan for a reason, and he can empathise better with these young kids than Biniam Girmay himself could ever hope to do. Perhaps you can use him to promote the healthy kosher food that Jews eat. Well, to pay other Jews like Harry Potter or Scarlett Johansson, we can use Froome instead. He may be less attractive, but at least he's already on the payroll. We would all be applauding the circus show of Bradley Wiggins' greatest enemy if he would accept that his level is that of a mascot who earns millions of euros for appearing in commercials, like Krusty did in The Simpsons. But no, Froome wants to continue playing the alpha male and has told one of his few friends in cycling, Geraint Thomas, what his new dream for 2024 is: to win a stage in the Tour de France, or failing that, to be close to the best in the GC of the Grand Boucle. Even G himself didn't believe it when he told him. He ended up laughing in his face and telling him that, well, that's hardly likely to happen, is it? I mean, it's just as if you, dear subscriber, had told Thomas that hopefully you would win a stage of the Tour 2024. Laughable. Now, to do this, Froome has repeated the plan that he made in the 2023 campaign. I'm not talking about being humiliated in the Tour Down Under, but rather going to the Tour of Rwanda, a competition in which most professional teams take their under-23 riders, and where most of the participants are Africans and locals who participate by selection. A village race, but elevated to the 2.1 category of cycling by the dirty interests of David Le Papillon on African soil. Dressed as usual in his philanthropic Adams Company's advertising jersey, Froome rode the same circuit created by his patron for poor young Rwandans, and he shot his classic commercial video, that one. However, when he got on his bike, his performance was not what was expected for a potential Tour de France stage-winning contender. In the opening team time trial, Froome could have smiled by finishing second behind Lefebvre's Soudal under-23 team. But in reality, he had no credit when he came in 5 minutes and 21 seconds behind his teammates. In other words, he had the balls to go for a ride on an 18-kilometre stage to start the season. A great example for his under-23 teammates. In fact, his gregario duties were limited to carrying water bottles and attempting an attack at the start of the Queen stage of the edition, one which failed miserably. And while his 21-year-old teammate, Joseph Blackmore, took the glory, Froome had to settle for 27th place out of 64 in the GC, almost 16 minutes behind the winner in a week-long competition. In front of under-23 cyclists and semi-professional cyclists and cyclists from Mauritius. Oh, Chris Froome, stop cheating people. Follow Adams' example and build your cycling school projects in Kenya. You've already swindled enough money to behave like a philanthropic millionaire. Now, dear viewers, let us know in the comments where you think Froome will finish in the Tour de France 2024. Perhaps we could take a saddle and raffle it among the participants. Yes.